Globalization's changing. You know this, don't you? Globalization 1 is over. Globalization 2 is multi-regionalization and doesn't necessarily involve Europe. Think about that. Multi-regionalization is about regions of the world trading with each other, but not necessarily involving Europe. We've had a presumption that Europe is owed a living by connecting with the world. Things have changed quite a lot. We need to think in this connected world of what's happening. This is the first time, by the way, we've reconfigured the world since we were alive. The United States ran the world since the Second World War. The United Kingdom ran the world for a while before that. And now, looking forward, the Chinese are going to run the world in a very short time. And the view is that within the next couple of decades, the China's going to run the world, and India will be in close second. They're going to be the largest economy in the world. They're going to set the agenda for world governance, and ultimately they will set the agenda for political governance of the world, because that's the way it's always gone. This is the developed countries, this bit at the bottom. This is where everybody else has been born and staying alive. We're halfway up that slope. When you're halfway up a slope like that, you're not at the end. This isn't finished. This is a work in progress. We are reconfiguring the world in population terms and talent and resources. And it's changing everything. More interestingly, in some ways, of the next 2.5 billion people to be born, 1.75 billion will be born in Muslim countries. And therefore, we are reconfiguring the value base and the basis of decisioning and culture in the world, again for the first time. Halal market, I talked about a moment ago, isn't chickens. Halal is halal software, halal accounting services, halal computers, halal IT, halal in the cloud, halal tables, halal holidays, halal hotels, halal airlines. Halal just means Quranic permissible. And if a lot of people are being born and getting wealthier and want to follow their values like the Westie with its Judeo-Christian value set, whether we have those faith beliefs now, they are part of our culture and our behavior and our norms and our values. We've got a whole bunch of new people who are reconfiguring the world around their agenda. And many hotels now are multiple swimming pools, his and hers, so you don't share a pool, which is not Quranic, is not halal. No bars. And actually non-halal people, non-Muslims, are going to those hotels because they enjoy the experience. This is reconfiguring how products and services are being offered. What's the basis of values behind them? There are so many changes happening at once. We just need to get on top of the important ones. Housing starts falling behind requirement. What does that actually mean? What does that mean in terms of staff? Graduates leaving debt burdened, 3.8 million householders in negative equity. How does that impact you? People offshoring work, 60% still saying they're going to do that. There's less business travel. What's the consequence? How many people are using Skype or video conferencing for business conversations now? Can you give a show of hands? Yeah? Last year, how many of you used video conferencing for business? The year before? Right, brilliant. 18 months. Just massive change because of all the drivers that led us towards that being a much better way of doing business. The other thing, of course, is debt we're going to carry. The Maastricht Treaty talks about 60% being the limit. We're talking about 17 of the 27 countries in Europe going to be over that limit by the end of this year. We've blown away the old rules of doing business. We're completely reconfiguring how our communities work. Business opportunity, threat, irrelevant. That's the issue. Is it one, the other, or irrelevant? And they're all valid judgments. The forecasts are that we'll have 6 million more vehicles on the road in the next 20 years. Right, hands up who knows where we can put them. 6 million more cars. Do you remember what happened in Athens when they had the problem with congestion? Perhaps we do that. They said you could have odd number cars, registration number, drive on one day, and even registration number cars drive on the next day. Guess what happened? Everyone bought 2 cars. And the other one they weren't using was taking up the parking spaces they didn't have anyway. They doubled the number of cars in Athens. Brilliant. So, unintended consequences of what, we will have consequences of all of this. We can't now afford to make our trains 12 carriages long or make the platforms 12 carriages long because we can't afford that anymore. So how are we going to deal with that? We can't move people around against all the projections. We cannot afford to put all this infrastructure in place. So, the consequences could be this. This is a study done by Orange. I love this one. If we have people work at home, they ask them, where would you work? And where would you live? They said, well, I'm not living here. You can see the response about the Midlands. West Midlands, 81% of people said they would leave, and East Midlands, 70% said they'd leave. And South East, down 3%. Look at South West, 158%. So what were people saying? What people were saying is, if you let me work from home, I'm going to go to where I want to retire to. Why am I living here in this horrible place when I don't need to see you anymore and I don't need to be here? I'm going off down there. Right. So everyone in South West, fantastic boom time. How's the rest of the country doing? We've just reconfigured where we live. We've changed all of the value of housing, of commercial property, of transportation systems, of the value of talent. Some of these places are going to be full. So we've reconfigured where we want to work. Something else is happening now, and we want this to happen. This is an unintended consequence, but we want this to happen. The Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies is very good at looking at social change. And one of the things they said about most of Northern Europe countries is we live in a risk society. We're exposed to risk by TV, radio, tweeting, blogs. We're up to the minute we know what's going on in the world, and invariably it tends to be bad news travels fast, yeah? We know about that all the time. We get bombarded. They upgraded that recently to the fear society because we are overwhelmed with all of this knowledge. And we may not consciously realize it, but subconsciously we're being peppered with these issues. Last year there was a study saying, how you're feeling about recession, about worrying about money. 43% of people said they had physical symptoms as a consequence of worrying about money. How does the workforce look now? Worried, sleeping too little, which wasn't this one, there's another survey that says that. We sleep too little, we're worried about our finances. How engaged are we in the business? How committed can we be with all that going on in our minds? 10 million people have strained relationships due to money worries. An enormously worried society, a fearful society that we live in. Another factor, aging. We all know we live in an aging society. Okay, we get that. What's quite interesting is, if you go from right to left in Europe, you die younger over here, so don't move over here. If you want to live longer, move over here. No, it's a joke, of course. There's a whole bunch of reasons why those societies are more organized to have longer lifespans. The UK is roughly 79 years of age or thereabout, 80 if you're a woman, a bit older. And pretty much the same for Western Europe, then it gets slightly less, and they die off over here at 65, 70. And of course that will change as wealth and labour practices and regulation improve. Okay, we know that lots of us are living beyond 100. It was 9,000 only a couple of years ago. It's going to be 1.2 million 100-year-olds in the UK by 2075. We expect men to die off roughly 79. What Cass is saying, look, minimum is 91. And we think the upper number really is probably near 97. 10 years out. £140,000 per person per year cost to government or private pension to fund that. Over 65s need care. It's going to increase 64% in the next 16 years. If you're not in the welfare business, if you're not in the care business in the community, you're mad. High growth business, fantastic opportunity if that's what your brand can carry itself into. Big, big opportunity. Threat, of course, is the cost. Lots of opportunity there. Or, one of my favourite people I talk about is Aubrey Gray says, look, there's every chance we're going to live to 500 or 1,000. So all this is peanuts, these extra 10, 12 years. This is about converging sciences allowing us to live a lot longer. What he's saying about is really quite simple. Aging is curable. Or we get fat and die young. Now, alternatively, nothing goes in a straight line because also there's massive obesity in the UK. We're third in the world. We have to do something about it. Here's big fat seats for the subway, and here's a big fat ambulance that I suppose when you ring up and say, how much do you weigh before they send an ambulance? This is in North Wales. It takes a 28-stone person and has a crane on the back to get you in. This is the shape of the UK population now. The people are supposed to make the money so that we can live off the pension scheme the way it was designed to work. We didn't give birth to because we're busy at work and having a good time, which is fine. That's valid. Well, we're missing these people. This one is India. That's a proper shape for a population to run things the way that we want to run them. We know we have to change our systems of welfare and care and pensions because we don't have these people down here. Here's a view in 1960 of this darker colour. It's men and women, or men and women this way around. This is the developed world population. This is the developing world population. So not that big a difference, yeah? But they've got the profile. We roll that forward to 2000, This is the developed world. This is the rest of the world. It's going to work. It's energetic. It's learning. It understands the value of education. It's dynamic. We're getting old, middle-aged, average age of Europe, 43. We're getting ready for rest, aren't we? They're just going to work. This is the difference in energy levels. Finally, a view round to 2040. Now look at it. Look at the volume. If we think things are going to carry on the way they've always carried on in these next few decades, we are staring the evidence in the face that that's very unlikely to be the case.